Mountains and rivers are ever changing, and the world is full of vicissitudes. Wei Tu travels through the world of immortals and knights, awakening his late-bloomed destiny. Destiny. Late blooms of great vessels. Attribute. Resilience, there must be success. Seeing this destiny, Wei Tu, who had been smoothed out, finally ignited hope in his heart, but he didn't know if he could become an immortal as his ancestor with a humble body. What can be done? Only by grasping the present moment and cherishing the warmth of the wife and children in front of us. There are already 3 high-quality books. I rewrote family history, Cultivation. I can reincarnate in the heavens, and the heavens starting from White Deer Plain, keywords of the novel. I am a late bloomer in the realm of cultivation without a pop-up window. I am downloading the complete TXT collection of late bloomers in the realm of cultivation. I am reading the latest chapter of Late Bloomers in the Realm of Cultivation. Chapter 1. Late Completion of Great Tools. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1 Late Completion of Great Tools Xinghua, Qingfeng Prefecture. Aoki Prefecture. Li Zhai. The night is deep. On the third watch, Wei Tu timed his biological clock, rubbed his sleepy eyes, got up from the earthen Kong, felt black and put on a coat, walked to the stable outside, lit a light, and began to mix the horses. The scent of hay and beans mixed with the sound of chicken eggs being smashed, and the half-black horse in the stable happily snorted and arched the rough cloth jacket of the arched guard. When will the task of feeding horses end? Fortunately, I am still a modern person. It's difficult to get ahead. Wei Tu sat on the blue stone outside the stable, took out a dry tobacco pole from his waist, stuffed some dried tobacco leaves into the brass smoke pot, lit it with fire paper, and took a few puffs. As 2 thick plumes of smoke emerged from his nostrils, he leaned comfortably against the earthen wall, his eyes half squinting. In modern times, because the family has been strictly controlled since childhood, he does not smoke or drink, let alone the older generation who smoke dry cigarettes. But now he likes to smoke. Know it. This thing relieves fatigue. After smoking, most of the fatigue can dissipate. After waiting for a moment, Wei Tu saw that the dark horse had finished his meal, so he knocked the cigarette stick against his soft satin shoes a few times, then patted the dust on his buttocks, ready to wash and sleep. Horses without night grass are not fat. Li's horse needs to be fed every 3 shifts, so he didn't dare to sleep to death before. If you abandon a good horse, you will definitely eat Mr. Li's drop. Taking out a bucket of sweet and cool well water from the well, Wei Tu took a few sips and filled his stomach. Then he lifted the bucket and poured it onto his shirtless body, enjoying the coolness seeping into his tail. Quickly, strips of dirt rubbed off him and fell to the ground. Am I so old? I'm only 17 years old, and I look like a young man in his 30s. When Gu was washing his legs, in the yellow mud water of the wooden basin, Wei Tu borrowed the light from the stable to see his face clearly at this moment. A dark face with many wrinkles on the forehead that peers should not have, coupled with white hair at the temples, looks quite aging. Only through those clear black and white eyes can one barely see that he is a teenager. However, at this moment, the face in the basin has changed again, and Wei Tu's appearance has become even older. From a young man with vicissitudes of life, he has truly become an old man with chicken skin and white hair. Seeing this scene, Wei Tu was so scared that he took a few steps back. After a long time, he touched his face and pulled up his wet hair that was hanging over his shoulders. It was only when he saw that it was still black that he finally let go of his worries. Did I make a mistake? Wei Tu was skeptical and poured a basin of clean water again, looking towards the water surface. The scene on the water was exactly the same as what he looked like at the moment. But after a moment's rest, just like before, his face changed again. The old man with chicken skin and crane hair, who looked similar to him, reappeared. This time, Wei Tu was not intimidated, but carefully observed his own unusual in the water. After a few breaths, The water ripples. A golden-purple light appeared at the center of the eyebrows of the elderly man with chicken skin and crane hair, shining brightly. At the same time, Wei Tu's eyebrows began to twinkle with golden light. A golden seal with a sun-engraved, late-bloomed masterpiece suddenly appeared in my mind. The destiny of late bloomers. Wei Tu was stunned. In his past life, he enjoyed reading fairy tales and supernatural novels from a young age. There is a saying that traditional culture has a destiny. The destiny in the underworld determines a person's life, whether it is rich or noble, whether it is poor or lowly. The destiny that appeared in his mind at this moment, with a golden-purple color, was undoubtedly the legendary upper destiny. Unfortunately, this destiny is a late bloomer and does not seem to bring much improvement to his current impoverished situation. As if sensing Wei Tu's thoughts, the golden seal shone brightly and transformed into 2 lines of writing floating in Wei Tu's mind. Destiny. Late blooms of great vessels. Attribute. Resilience and perseverance, one must achieve success. Perseverance leads to success. Wei Tu's mouth twitched. The saying, "there must be success," is too mysterious, and waiting for him to reach his 70s or 80s before achieving great success is of no use at all. As he grew old, his teeth fell out, and even though he kept praising his name and being wealthy, he still couldn't even eat meat. Not to mention the sound and lust of dogs and horses. Since he has a destiny, then, is there still a legendary immortal? He will live forever, swimming towards the North Sea in the morning in dusk in the sky. Wei Tu was secretly excited. If this world can cultivate immortality and achieve enlightenment, then his late-bloomed destiny will not be a chicken rib, but a treasure. Although Qingfeng Mansion does not have immortals who open mountains to recruit disciples, there are martial artists who open schools to recruit disciples and practice martial arts. When these warriors were young, they relied on their blood and courage to fight fiercely. Once they grew old, they would suffer from hidden injuries and often die suddenly. Few people would live to the age of flower armor. However, not all martial arts secrets are techniques of combat, and there are also health preservation techniques that can prolong life. Practicing health preservation skills is not easy to be brave and ruthless, and it is common for people to extend their lifespan to 70 or 80 years old. The books record that Miaoying Zhenren practiced health preservation skills and lived to over 100 years old. Wei Tu thought of this and made up his mind to first find an opportunity to cultivate health preservation skills, and then go to the immortal cave to seek guidance from his master. With the blessing of the late bloomer destiny, as long as he persistently cultivates health preservation techniques, in his later years, these health preservation techniques will surely exert their due effects. The lifespan has been extended. The possibility of him seeking immortality and enlightenment will increase. As for the martial arts method of fighting, the world is currently peaceful and of little use. Of course, if given the opportunity, Wei Tu would also be willing to learn. Previously, he did not practice martial arts for 3 reasons besides being poor in literature and rich in martial arts. On the one hand, martial arts are difficult. Without corresponding roots, it is difficult to achieve success. Practicing health preservation techniques is also because they are easy to learn and have a low threshold. Both, the martial arts strength is limited, and those who practice martial arts can already be praised as a martial arts powerhouse if they can defeat 10 enemies. 100 enemies and 1,000 enemies are already legendary figures. Among the 3, martial artists wield their swords to save lives, and most of them are idle individuals who are not dedicated to their work and find it difficult to end their lives well. The warriors of Qingfeng Prefecture are mostly swordsmen, wielding Hengshan swords from Hengshan town, dismounting to become farmers and mounting to become bandits. Tomorrow, I'll go find my second aunt first. My second aunt is Mr. Huang's concubine, and Huang's house has hired a martial arts master as a guardian. Maybe my family has health preservation skills. Returning to the Kong, Wei Tu pressed down on the surprise of discovering the golden finger, tossed and turned several times, and finally fell into a deep sleep due to exhaustion. In the morning. The sky is hazy and bright. Wei Tu got up to feed the horses and picked up a broom to clean the courtyard of Li's house. When the host is about to wake up, he went to the kitchen to help the cook cook. Feeding horses and helping the courtyard with leisure work is his daily job. In the 15th year of Qinyan, which was 6 years ago, his father Wei Bao sold him to Li's house as a servant and treated him as a tenant slave. Fortunately, after several years of hard work, Wei Tu learned the art of raising horses from the old horsekeeper Lu Tu and successfully rose from a tenant slave to Li Zhaixin's horsekeeper. As for old Lu, he passed away years ago. Both the tenant slave and the horse shepherd seem to be servants, but the former is bitter and tired, without any wages, and the master's family is in dire straits. As a skilled worker, Ma Yu earns monthly wages and cooks together with his master. It's just a slight difference in food. The host eats meat, while Wei Tu eats soup and water with meat and fishy taste. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Gu Wei Hong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Gu Wei Hong. These days, eating meat is a luxury, and being able to eat soup with meat is much stronger than most wealthy households. Carrot stewed meat is almost ready, Brother Wei, please try it and see if it's salty. The stove was full of fireworks, and Wei Tu moved the maza under his buttocks, took a few steps back, and stopped adding firewood. At this moment, the cook Xinghua looked at Wei Tu with a smile on her face, scooped out a bowl of vegetables from the bottom with a wooden spoon, and handed it to Wei Tu. Yu Dao is. The cook does not steal, and the grain is not collected. The cook cannot stop trying not to steal food. Apricot blossoms are being eaten secretly, and the Li family's mistress is also turning a blind eye. I can't steal much food from either side. Okay. Watching the cooked pork at the bottom of the bowl, Wei Tu rolled his throat a few times and quickly glanced out the window. Seeing no one around, he swallowed it in large gulps. In a short moment, the radish and meat at the bottom of the bowl were licked clean by Wei Tuesday. On what day today, how did you eat radish stewed meat? Wei Tu placed his bowl on the table and curiously asked the cook Apricot Blossom. The owner of Li's house doesn't eat much meat either, twice a week, which is once every 5 days. And it has only been 2 days since Xinghua last made meat. Eating meat all day is not without the money of the Li family, but for wealthy families, doing such things would ruin their family business and they would be scolded by their ancestors after death. The Li family has only been prosperous for about 100 years, and the family business accumulated step by step by the ancestors of the Li family as traveling merchants. The young master has returned from his study tour in the city, and the old lady is happy. She asked me to go to the meat shop yesterday and cut 2 pounds of meat. The cook, Apricot Blossom, replied. Young master. Wei Tu's heart moved and he remembered his young playmate. Unfortunately, time passes and circumstances change. The distinction between master and servant gradually became clear. Even though he had past friendships, when he saw the young master, he still called him the young master to bid farewell to his master and servant. Can you help me take a leave for grandma later? I'll go out if I have something to do. After adding some firewood, Wei Tu stood up and patted the cigarette ash that had fallen on his body, saying. Although Grandma Li manages the family rigorously, as long as she completes the tasks within her responsibilities, taking a break from her busy schedule is not a big deal. Wei Tu said it was a leave of absence, but it was just a greeting to the host family. No problem. Cooking Lady Xinghua responded, holding an iron spoon and starting to stir-fry the next dish. But as soon as she finished speaking, she let out a ouch and blushed, glaring at Wei Tu who had stepped out of the stove. Just now, Wei Tu pinched her buttocks. Countryside people, there is no such thing as propriety, righteousness, integrity, and shame. She and Wei Tu had a romantic relationship a few years ago, only waiting for their grandmother's approval before getting married and starting a family. Leaving Li's house, Wei Tu didn't rush to go directly to the Huang family. Instead, he took out the wages he had accumulated over the years and ran to the rouge shop. In the first few years of marrying into the Huang family, my second aunt Wei Hong was still close to his family and would come back to visit them every once in a while. But in the past decade, I have been walking less and less. After my grandparents passed away 4 years ago, I only went back to the Wei family twice. One of them was still a funeral. This time I asked my second aunt Wei Hong to handle things, and Wei Tu didn't want to be looked down upon. It's better to offer gifts than to go empty-handed. Rice, grain, and cloth are not lacking in the yellow house. All he can give is rouge, water, and powder for women. Shop owner, what are the cheap rouge and toner options available? After hesitating for a moment, Wei Tu gritted his teeth and walked into the rouge shop, asking about the price. Rouge and water powder have always been of high value, and the money he has in his hands is not even worth touching high-end rouge. Cheap. The shop owner glanced at Wei Tu and saw that Wei Tu was dressed in a patchwork coarse cloth gray shirt, and his mind immediately began to understand. He took a brocade box from the storage cabinet and said, "This is golden swallow fat. It costs 5 yuan per box, enough for 2 months. If the young man is preparing to give gifts, this golden swallow fat is more suitable." The shop owner paused and added, "We also have cheaper rouge in our store, such as Zheng, which costs 3 yuan per box, but the gift of rouge is inevitably inappropriate. Just choose Zheng." Wei Tu pondered for a moment, nodded, and took out 5 large coins of Dang Qian Wen and placed them on the counter. Gu Wei Hong is a noblewoman from the Yellow Mansion, and she has gone to the rouge shop much more times than him. If he gives Zheng as a gift, even if she doesn't say it openly, Wei Hong will still be unhappy in her heart. Etiquette is important, affection is important. Besides, since Zheng is the cheapest rouge in rouge shops, the probability of applying this rouge will be very low with Wei Hong's position. The purple cloud grease given will also be shelved by them. As for bargaining, they are all villagers, and if the rouge shop bullies customers, the business won't last long. In ancient times, the only thing that made Wei Tu feel good about it was the reputation environment in ancient times. Apart from despicable outsiders, local people rarely engaged in fraudulent behavior. This type of large store also rarely allows customers to negotiate prices, they are all clearly priced. Wei Tu is short of money, but it's not enough to delay time for a few copper coins. "I'll pack it for you," the shop owner chuckled. Xiao Qing, Wei Tu, carrying a gift box, arrived at a street lined with official residences. Compared to the Li residence, Mr. Huang in the Huang residence has more financial strength and is also wealthier. The Shengyifang where he is located is the residence of high-ranking officials and nobles in Qingmu County. Find the mansion with a yellow plaque, and the guard will knock on the side door, explaining the purpose of the visit to the door. Second grandma's family. Wait in the sedan hall first, and I'll pass on the maid from the inner courtyard. The door opened and Wei Tu sat in the sedan hall, then set off towards the inner courtyard of the Huang mansion. The sedan hall is a place where wealthy families set up sedan chairs, all located in the front yard. Wei Tu waited for a moment before being led by a maid named Qinghe to a side room in the front yard, waiting for his second aunt Wei Hong. Rich families have strict rules and do not allow outsiders, especially men, to enter the inner courtyard. After waiting for about half an hour, a beautiful woman with a bright appearance and skin like sheep fat pushed open the wooden door of the wing and walked in. 2 maids followed behind her, one of whom was the Qinghe, who had previously led the way. "Wei Tu, why did you come to find your second aunt?" But something happened at home. Wei Hong sat on the stool next to the table in the room, took a sip of the tea poured by the maid, and smiled. "There's nothing wrong at home." Wei Tu stood up and didn't sit down anymore. He bowed slightly and said, "This time I'm looking for my second aunt. I have something to ask her for." Although he was sold to Li's house by Wei Bao, his connection with his family has not been cut off. Wei Bao sold him out of helplessness. 6 years ago, Red Dragon turned over in Qinfeng Prefecture suffered from a severe drought, with almost no harvest. It was better to beg for food at Li's house than to starve to death at home. Wei Hong's smile stopped for a moment, and he placed the tea cup on the table. His gaze was sharp as he looked at Wei Tuesday. Although he didn't say anything serious, his attitude already indicated everything. Wei Bao has something to do, but as a younger sister, she can still help to think about it and take care of the sibling relationship. But a nephew, this is the rouge my nephew bought, please accept it from my second aunt. Wei Tu took out the gift box and placed it on the 8 immortals table, pushing it towards Wei Hong's direction. Upon seeing the gift, Wei Hong's face improved a bit, knowing that Wei Tu was not someone who lacked shame and etiquette. Married into the Huang family for many years, she is already the wife of the Huang family, not the Wei family. What's up? If I can help you, my second aunt will do her best to help you. If I can't help. Wei Hong shook his head and didn't say much. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Health Preservation Techniques. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Health Preservation Techniques. The implied meaning of Wei Hong. Wei Tu understood. His second aunt's intention is to make him speak carefully. She can help with small tasks, but not with big ones. My nephew came this time with the intention of asking my second aunt to learn some martial arts from the Yellow House Guard, so that I can take good care of my body. Wei Tu pondered for a moment and said. Practice martial arts. Since ancient times, you have been poor in literature and rich in martial arts. You are already old, and there is no way out to practice martial arts. Wei Hong frowned. She actually hoped that her nephew was asking for a good job at the Huang mansion, but after thinking about it, Wei Tu had already been sold to the Li mansion, so there was no way to say this. There is a mother's family, and as a married woman, she has a strong sense of confidence, but unfortunately, the Wei family cannot help her up the wall and cannot do her any favors. Practicing health preservation techniques is also good for strengthening the body. Wei Tu's words gave Wei a bit. Compared to unique martial arts, health preservation skills are considered a common thing among martial artists and are not precious. Since you insist, I'll say hello to Master Wan and ask him to teach you a few skills. Wei Hong sighed when he saw Wei Tu's stubbornness and agreed. After speaking, Wei Hong didn't have the intention of chatting with Wei Tu in the wing room. He glanced at the maid and casually found a reason, then stood up and planned to leave. Second aunt, this gift. Wei Tu saw that Wei Hong was about to turn around and walk out of the room, and quickly reminded him. Qinghe, take the gift. Wei Hong didn't turn back and gave a command to the maid before continuing towards the corridor. After a moment, Wei Tu in the wing room finally realized that Wei Hong did not take the gift directly when he left, but secretly told him not to come to see her as the second aunt again next time. The love and friendship have come to an end. Grandma Air has already said hello to Master Wan, and Brother Wei is still invited to come here. In the afternoon, a maid named Tsuelio arrived at the wing room and led Wei Tu to another courtyard in the front yard. Entering the gate of the courtyard, Wei Tu saw a burly man with a sword at his waist teaching 2 young noblemen in brocade on the broad ground. These 2 young nobles in brocade, one is 13 or 14 years old, and the other is only 7 or 8 years old. He thought to himself that this burly man should be the Ruan Wuxia mentioned by Wei Hong. Are you Wei Tuesday? Ruan Wuxia glanced at Wei Tu with a hint of contempt in his eyes, but his words did not reveal themselves. Yes, Master Ruan. Wei Tu clasped his fists and saluted. The guardian martial arts master is a guest of honor in a wealthy family, not a first-class servant. Second grandmother, please let me teach you a set of health preservation techniques. I happen to have the turtle breathing and qi nourishing technique that I obtained when I was young here. Please keep it. Ruan Wuxia took out a yellowed picture album from his sleeve and threw it to Wei Tuesday. Remember this move of turtle breathing and qigong, and in 7 days, hand it over to the door and return it to me," he said. After speaking, Master Wan waved his hand and gestured for Wei Tu to leave. There is no intention of teaching Wei Tu at all. Wei Tu saw the disdainful gaze of Master Wan and the young masters of the Huang family, but was not angry. He thanked them and left step by step. At this moment, the sound of 2 young men in brocade talking came from behind him. "Yuan Shan, was that your cousin just now? Why didn't you say hello?" "He's not my cousin, my mother didn't even let me see him." The ending gradually faded, and when Wei Tu's fiery face faded away and he looked up straight ahead, he suddenly realized that he had been out of the yellow house for a while. "With these golden fingers, I have gained courage and self-esteem in my chest. I am no longer numb." Wei Tu chuckled at himself. As early as last night when he was contemplating going to Huang's house to find his second aunt Wei Hong, he had already anticipated that today's scene might happen. But there was no other way, except for the Huang family where Wei Hong was located. He had no access to health preservation techniques, let alone martial arts. Health preservation skills are inferior to those of wealthy children and martial artists. Even if he could make contact, the cost he paid was much greater than these 2 sarcastic remarks. Step by step. With health preservation skills, if you persist, you will eventually become a good person. Wei Tu hugged the picture book in his arms, quickened his pace, and walked towards Li's house. He can't wait to practice the turtle-breathing qi cultivation technique. Although health preservation techniques may not be as effective as general martial arts, it does not mean that health preservation techniques have no combat ability at all. Strong and physically strong, always more powerful than ordinary people. In addition, if you have achieved success in health preservation, you can also achieve twice the result with half the effort by practicing other martial arts. Return to Li's house. After adding ingredients to the half-black horse, Wei Tu picked up the stable oil lamp and hid in the side room where he slept, starting to watch the book Turtle Breathing in Qi Nourishing Skill handed to him by Master Wan. This turtle-breathing qi cultivation technique is not complicated. There are only 7 stake techniques, totaling 32 stake techniques pictures. 2 or 3 hours later, Wei Tu followed the picture of health preservation techniques and began to stand on stakes and practice. He spread his feet apart, first holding his chest and back, lowering his shoulders and elbows, then consolidating his abdomen and crotch, controlling his breathing and breathing. His drill movements were very stiff, and he couldn't achieve the upper virtual and lower real, body virtual and pile real, and virtual and real mutually generating of the turtle breathing in qi nourishing skill. However, fortunately, this skill was not complicated, and through repeated drills, his movements became increasingly familiar. Once. Twice. At the 32nd time. Wei Tu's eyes flickered for a moment, and a line of handwriting appeared on his golden and purple life chart, as if engraved on it. Turtle Breathing Qigong, 1/100. Practice 9 times a day and complete within 5 years. 5 years, this is too long. It takes me 5 years to cultivate this health preservation skill to its fullest potential. Without realizing the surprise of the application of this destiny, Wei Tu's face turned a bit ugly. Although he had guessed his own qualifications for a long time, it took him 5 years to develop a basic health practice, which still made him feel unwilling. The average person who practices health preservation techniques will become proficient within a few months. Where can it last for 5 years? Wait, it will be completed in 5 years. The focus is not on 5 years, but on the word completion. Wei Tu flipped through the booklet and saw a sentence in the preface of Turtle Breathing and Nourishing Qi Gong. The cultivation of qi is successful, and qi originates from the pulse and can enter the realm of sensory qi combining with the destiny of de qi de qing late. It means that he spent more time practicing Gu Wei Yang Qi Gong than others, but he will definitely achieve success and create a sense of qi. Or to put it another way, his training may not necessarily be inferior to others, it's just that others may seem proficient in it, but they haven't truly reached the pinnacle. I just don't know what the realm of feeling chi is in the martial arts world. Wei Tu sighed. Due to background constraints, his understanding of the world is still too limited. I only learned some information through hearsay. However, he speculated that this realm should be extraordinary, otherwise it would not have been emphasized in the preface of Turtle Breath and Chi Cultivation Technique. 5 years is not a long time. After 5 years, it becomes clear at a glance whether this golden finger matches my guess. Wei Tu has patience to wait. At this moment, he is only 17 years old, and in 5 years, he will only be 20.2 years old. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Cherish the present. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Cherish the present. Outside. Even if he is in a hurry, it is of no use. The class solidification in this world is far beyond modern times, and it is difficult for him to transcend class alone. If it weren't for the help of his second aunt, who was working as a private room in the Yellow Mansion, he wouldn't have had access to the rare health benefits found in external bookstores this time. After arriving in a different world and awakening from the past, Wei Tu did not fail to consider changing his fate. But, going into business. In an official-oriented society, it's okay to do some small handicraft business, but once it involves big business, there will inevitably be big families vying for it. Without a corresponding status to protect property, it is a way of self-destruction. Being an official. First, enter a private school to study, have a pure identity, seek protection from the Lin Sheng, and then participate in the imperial examination. Only by fighting among thousands of soldiers and horses can one qualify for fame and achievement. Wei Tu has been a person of 2 generations, blessed with wisdom, and can also be considered clever. However, when compared to the prodigy from 10 miles away, he is far inferior. And these rural prodigies often have extremely poor lives, and it is difficult for them to achieve academic success and fame, often resulting in the tragic ending of an old child's life. Reciting the Confucian classics through the imperial examination is only a basic skill, and the difficulty lies in understanding the annotated books of Confucianism. Its word count is much more complex than that of the Confucian classics, and it lacks a good memory, making it difficult to win fame and fortune in the imperial examination for a lifetime. If MOE was simple, where did all the cheating methods in the imperial examination come from? Huaizong, rat hair abbreviation, flying pigeon transmission, toilet cheating. Furthermore, reading requires spending money. To raise a full-time scholar, if it's not about production, it's a difficult task. If we had to raise 2 young masters to study, the life of the Li family would not have been so tight. They only eat meat twice a week. No golden fingers. Wei Tu knew he was just a mediocre figure and it was difficult for him to turn over. Of course, Wei Tu has not completely lay flat in recent years. He has gone from being a tenant farmer to a horse shepherd in Li's house, and has become a role model for many rural people. The food is not bad. Having status in front of the host family. This is the life that many rural people dream of. Time flies in an instant. 7 days were coming soon, and Wei Tu handed over the picture book of Turtle Breathing in Qi Nourishing Skill to Huang Zhaimensi as agreed, and asked it to be delivered to the hands of the Ruan family martial artist. As for the content of the album, although Wei Tu remembered it very well, he still used a pen and paper to copy it for safety, and wrote a copy and hid it privately with him. After finishing this task, Wei Tu's life returned to tranquility, feeding horses, chopping firewood, and cleaning the yard every day. The only difference is that whenever he has free time, he starts practicing the pile technique of turtle breathing and Qi Nourishing technique. Even practice more than 9 times a day. But practice 10 or 11 times a day. This is the only possibility for Wei Tu to cross class and change his own destiny, and he naturally won't ignore it. Do one's best and listen to fate. Hard work pays off for those who have a heart. Whenever Wei Tu wants to give up or slack off, he secretly encourages himself and wakes himself up. 1 month. 2 months. Until 3 months passed. That evening, after completing the move of turtle breathing in Qi cultivation, Wei Tu finally discovered a slight abnormality in his body. At this time, it was late autumn and approaching winter, with heavy frost at night. However, Wei Tu did not feel any coldness at all. Instead, he felt warm currents gushing out from his limbs and bones, nourishing his body. This feeling is like soaking in a hot spring. If the cultivation of qi is not fully achieved, a warm current will already be produced in the body. So, the feeling of qi state is definitely not bad. Wei Tu is delighted. In these days, he has inquired about the cultivation of martial artists, and those swordsmen who are well known in the village only know some martial arts and play a few big swords, without the realm of being fearless of the cold at this moment. Progress has been made in health preservation techniques, and Wei Tu's mind has not relaxed. He continued to practice pile techniques until his muscles were tired and weak before returning to the Kong to rest. Turtle breathing Qigong, 21 out of 100. Practice 9 times a day and complete within 5 years. Before going to bed, Wei Tu closed his eyes and glanced at the progress of the health preservation technique. Seeing that it had reached more than 1.5, he felt very satisfied and snored to sleep. The next day, in the morning, Wei Tu got up early and started busy at Li's house. After working hard for nearly an hour, feeding horses and chopping firewood, Wei Tu found himself still cool and there was no sweat on his forehead. My physical fitness has greatly improved. Brother Wei, Grandma is looking for you. A girl dressed as an ordinary maid walked out of the inner house and called out to Wei Tuesday. Grandma called me. Wei Tu was stunned for a moment. He is an outsider and was able to walk around the house when he was young, but he was banned as he grew older. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked Xinghua to help him take leave last time. In wealthy households, there is a lot of etiquette. Even if the grandmother calls him, there must be a reason. I heard from Caixia that last night when Grandma and Grandpa were sleeping, they talked about you and Apricot Blossom, and I'm afraid they should be lenient. Chunlan covered her mouth and smiled, leaned over to Wei Tu, and lowered her voice. Then, you'll have to give me lucky money, she joked. Really, Grandma is going to agree to my marriage with Xinghua. Wei Tu is also delighted in his heart. He didn't expect that with his breakthrough in health preservation, another happy event would come upon him. Let's go. Wei Tu put down his chopping axe and got up to follow Chunlan into the moon gate, entering the inner courtyard of Li's house. 3 months ago. After 3 months. Despite the significant changes in Wei Tu's life circumstances, with a late bloomer, he is sure to make a name for himself in the future. I won't always be a horse shepherd. But Wei Tu did not underestimate the cook Xinghua because of this, believing that the maid of Li's house was not worthy of him. Holding high and stepping low is the norm in the world. However, Xinghua has been close to him since she was young at Li's house and has taken good care of him in her daily life. She can be said to be the closest person to him in this world. Wei Tu's nature is not yet so cold. Additionally, Wei Tu didn't think too highly of himself either. Achieving great health benefits doesn't mean he can find immortals and embark on the path of immortality in the future. Health benefits prolong life, but even after reaching the age of over 100, one will still end up dead. Grasping the present is the truth, aiming too high is not enough. After walking straight through the courtyard and a few corridors, Wei Tu arrived at the living room of Li's house. Entering the inner house, Wei Tu kept his head down due to his adherence to etiquette. As he entered the living room, his eyebrows and eyes slightly raised and he glanced at the people inside. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw only the women in the living room and did not see the master. Master Li Yaozu is a famous, sharp person, from all over the country, with harsh words and a stingy nature. Even unreasonable things can be said with reason. Not very easy to get along with. On the other hand, Grandma Li Tong is the opposite. She has a gentle personality, runs the family well, and is widely praised as a virtuous woman. Sitting upright in the seat, Li Tongshi was dressed in cloth, with an indigo blue shirt and woven shoes and socks tied with white ribbons on his feet. It's a very simple outfit. She lifted the teacup and took a soft sip. Brother Wei, you have been with the Li family for 6 years. These 6 years, the Li family should treat you well. P.S. 2 shifts a day, and 1 shift in the evening. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Marriage Finalization, for collection and follow-up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Marriage Finalization, for collection and follow-up. In the 15th year of Qingyan, the Red Dragon in Qingfeng Prefecture turned around, and countless people sold children and women in Qingmu County. 6 years ago, the Li family gave me a bite to eat, which helped me survive. This kindness has always been on my mind. Upon hearing this, Wei Tu's face showed surprise and his head was lower than before entering. He pondered for a moment and said these words. What he said is also true. During the famine, Li's house gave him a bite to eat, even as a gesture of kindness towards him. The grace of life. Compared to life, becoming a servant is secondary. The granary is solid and knows etiquette. Food and clothing are sufficient to know honor and disgrace. Selling oneself to a wealthy family is not a humiliation for rural people. Upon hearing this, Li Tong nodded and a hint of satisfaction appeared in her eyes. Although Wei Tu did not say the broad words of loyalty to the Li family, she could also hear the gratitude in his words. And that is enough. Xinghua entered the Li family 2 years earlier than you, and is 3 years older than you. I watched her grow up. As Chunlan said, Li Tong began to talk about the marriage between Wei Tu and Xinghua. As the saying goes, a woman in her freshman year holds a golden rooster, a woman in her sophomore year holds a golden crown, and a woman in her junior year holds a golden brick. Xinghua's parents passed away early, and I am also half of Xinghua's family, so I agreed to your marriage with her. Li Tong said slowly. As the words fell, several maids standing behind Li Tong's back immediately smiled and reached out to ask for wedding money from Wei Tuesday. Caixia, you go to my room, take out the red silk under the dowry, and send it to Xinghua's room. It's a gift for me as the head of the household. Also, tidy up a room and use it as the wedding room for Wei Tu and Xinghua. Yes, Grandma. Chunlan gave a slight bow and walked out of the living room. The next day. Li's mansion has a central courtyard. Wei Tu, who was slightly tipsy, stood under the eaves and rubbed his eyebrows to make himself clearer. Continuing. He glanced at the red silk flower nailed to the edge of the door, straightened his body, and forcefully pushed open the wooden door in front of him without a latch. With a creaking sound. Wei Tu entered the room and immediately noticed the bride sitting half by the bed. Through the partially covered red hood, Wei Tu felt that the appearance of apricot blossom had become more delicate than usual, from ordinary to beautiful. Wei Tu turned his head and looked at the other parts of the main room, where the new house had become much more tidy from the dilapidated state he remembered. A cross-shaped window. Newly pasted window paper. A wooden table supported by 2 long benches, with a small copper mirror and a sewing box for women on top. At the corner of the hall, there are 2 more solid wood boxes. Half of the paint on the box has peeled off. Wei Tu guessed that the solid wooden box should contain bedding and clothes. Brother Wei. Xinghua couldn't help but feel a little proud when she saw Wei Tu stunned in the new room. The room was cleaned and redecorated by her. She called out to Wei Tu, but seeing that Wei Tu had not regained his senses, she twisted and struggled to open a second mouth. She secretly complained that Wei Tu had been teasing her so much in his daily life, but when he truly got married, he was so strict with etiquette. There was nothing to say overnight. Dawn shone through the window paper into the main room, and Wei Tu lay on the bed holding apricot blossoms. In theory, the newlyweds, who just got married yesterday, can take a day off from their work at Li's house today and sleep until the sun rises. But Wei Tu and Xinghua have long been accustomed to getting up early, even if they are lazy at this moment, it is difficult to fall asleep. Brother Wei, in a few more days, let's take a few days off for grandma and come back to your house to see. We also need to inform our father when we get married. Xinghua spoke in a low voice. Selling themselves into the Li family, the two of them naturally did not need to worry about any matchmaker's words when they got married. With the orders of their parents, the Li family master and grandmother could come up with this idea, and no one could pick a thorn. Anyway, we still need to notify Wei Bao and tell him the good news. Wei Tu nodded. His hometown is a distance from the county town of Qingmu County, and it takes 1 or 2 days to walk, which is also why he did not inform Wei Bao in advance. Besides distance, there is another reason why he did not inform Wei Bao about his marriage. That's because this marriage was hosted by Li Zhai, and Wei Bao, an outsider, wouldn't be good to come to Li Zhai. Li's house couldn't free up a room for Wei Bao to stay temporarily. Besides looking at my dad, there's also. As she spoke, Xinghua got out of bed, took the needle and thread box from the table, and patiently helped Wei Tu mend the old coat she had worn out before. While busy, she chatted with Wei Tu and discussed the complicated matters after marriage. Take leave. Meet family and friends. Rent land to grow crops. Wait a series of things. The main house was temporarily lent to them by the Li family, who pitted these two servants. Although the Li family did not specify the date of return, staying there for a long time made them feel uncomfortable. It's better to save money to buy a house near Li's house. In addition, the two of them were just enslaved, and we couldn't let the child follow in the footsteps and bow to others from a young age. And all of these require money. At present, the way to make money is to work hard and rent the land of Li's house, and then become a tenant while working as a horse shepherd. In this way, we can accumulate some silver money every year. Listen to you. Wei Tu nodded and agreed to the plan made by Xinghua, the bride, for their small family. In this way, after 5 or 6 years, it won't be difficult to acquire a house. When you have a child, let him go to a private school to study. Once he finishes his studies, he will be provided with the opportunity to take the imperial examinations. Generally, let him become an accountant. Xinghua smiled. With a broad and capable family, and a down-to-earth and capable man, she felt that this life was already enough. Studying in private schools. Upon hearing these 4 words, Wei Tu fell silent for a moment, picked up the dry tobacco stick from his waist, lit it, and took a few firm puffs. Reading, change your destiny. This is a memory engraved in his bones. With health preservation skills and the destiny of a late bloomer, although Wei Tu cannot be certain that he will be able to embark on the path of immortality, become an immortal ancestor, and live a carefree life, he is confident that his generation can definitely rise to fame. Continue practicing health preservation techniques. Wei Tu no longer spent time in bed, quickly put on his clothes, and then raised his hand to practice the pillar skill of turtle breathing in qi nourishing technique. Over and over again. After marriage, he seemed to have more ambition in his heart. The apricot blossom on the side was surprised to see this scene, but she didn't ask much. The martial arts of Qinfeng Prefecture are not weak, and many farmers and men, due to poverty, have become bandits and civilians, working as swordsmen to support themselves. Her men know a few tricks, it's not a strange anecdote. Xinghua withdrew her gaze and continued with the needlework in front of her, but after a moment's thought, she began to make Wei Tu's clothes more loose. Thank you to the learning-loving 3-legged cat for a reward of 1,500 starting coins, the empty high reward of 500 starting coins, and the book friend for a reward of 100 starting coins on 20220317121509785. This book, I want to write a warm and heartwarming story about walking step by step from the bottom to the cultivation world. I hope everyone will enjoy it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Zheng State Officials and Soldiers, Seeking Collection, Seeking Follow-up Reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Zheng State Officials and Soldiers, Seeking Collection, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Time passes by. Half a month has passed in a blink of an eye. On the second day of their marriage, Wei Tu and Xinghua returned to their jobs and began to work diligently both inside and outside Li's house, without any slackness. The two of them are even more diligent than before. These performances were all noticed by Grandma Li, and every few days, Li Tong praised them once or twice, expressing great satisfaction with the marriage she had facilitated. Compared to Wei Tu, Apricot Blossom has undergone significant changes. Previously, she used to sneak around in the kitchen and have some meat and fish, but after getting married, she changed her personality. After 1 pound of meat was cooked and shrunk to 7 taels, she directly served these 7 taels of meat to the dining table in the inner house without any slipping or stealing. Sensing that Li Tongshi's satisfaction with herself had reached its highest level in the past decade, Xinghua tiptoed and cautiously greeted Li Tongshi in the afternoon, expressing her and Wei Tu's intention to take leave and return to their hometown for family visits. In the book, it is said that if there is nothing to pay attention to, it is either dishonesty or theft. Li Tong was carrying the soles of her shoes in the living room, and the hemp rope made a faint noise as it passed through the 1,000 layers of cloth. She looked up at the apricot blossom and said this sentence with a smile. Although her words were harsh, coupled with Li Tong's gentle smile, Xinghua's reserved demeanor when facing her master dissipated for the most part. I have seen all the work you have done these days. Don't worry, I won't have anyone take over your work until you come back. Li Tong made a promise. Thank you, Granny. Apricot Blossom showed a grateful expression and thanked her. There's one more thing. After hesitating for a moment, Xinghua gritted her teeth and revealed her plan to let Wei Tu rent Li's grain field as a tenant. After winter, the fields can start planting wheat, beans, and rapeseed. At that time, it would not be easy to find an unowned land in the grain fields of Li's house. Brother Wei won't delay feeding the horses. Xinghua saw that Li Tongshi didn't respond this time and lowered her head to add. She also knows that this requirement is a bit excessive. No matter how capable a living person is, it's better for 2 people to work separately. Balancing farming and horse feeding, if one fails, it will be a loss for Li's house. Secondly, Li's residence is located in the county town, and Wei Tu rented land to grow crops. In order to ensure the feeding of horses, Li's residence can only be rented on the riverbank near the county town. Riverside land and dry slope land are different, they are both first-class grain fields. Even without careful care, a drought can still bring a bountiful harvest. The matter of renting land will be discussed after you and Wei Tu return to their hometown to explore their marriage. Li Tong did not refuse or agree. Yes, Grandma. Xinghua felt a bit lost and left the inner courtyard with her head hanging down. At night. After listening to Xinghua's narration, Wei Tu comforted and said, since Grandma has not rejected your request, she has a desire to agree in her heart. She is just the head of the household and cannot agree to 2 things at once. He didn't say anything later. Li Tong's actions make sense. If he indulges others too much, one day people will kick their noses and face. The fact that Li's house was well managed by Li Tong's family, and the servants were both respectful and afraid of Li Tong's family, all of which indicate that Li Tong is a housewife who knows how to manage a family. I won't agree this time, and next time, please ask a few more times. Grandma's heart has softened, and I have already completed my goal. I will agree. Wei Tu expresses his own opinion. Even if it doesn't work out. After 5 years, when his health preservation is complete and he enters the realm of sensory energy, the little money spent on renting farmland and farming is not worth mentioning. Now, with the warm current flowing out of his limbs, he has 180 pounds of strength when his arms are waved. Once his health preservation is completed, his physical fitness will definitely be better than it is now. With this physical fitness, after practicing moves and reading some military books, one can participate in the martial arts examination and strive for the title of a martial arts scholar or martial arts examiner. After retiring, one can become a guard martial arts master and become a guest of honor for wealthy families. The martial arts examination of the state of Zheng was first based on martial arts skills, followed by strategy. As long as one is skilled in martial arts and has a lower level of military strategy, one can still achieve military achievements and fame. Okay, when I come back, I'll ask Grandma a few more times, Xinghua exclaimed as she listened to Wei Tu's insightful analysis, feeling both amazed and overjoyed. The next day, the sky was hazy and bright. Wei Tu and Xinghua packed their luggage and left the county town in the dark, heading to the countryside. Wei Tu's hometown is in Weijia Village, Changming Township, Qingmu County. It takes about 20 miles of official roads and 7 or 8 miles of mountain roads to drive from the county town to Changming Township. Halfway down the road, there were mule carts on the official road, and Wei Tu and Xinghua spent a little money and sat on them. At the end of the official road, it was only noon, and there were about 2 hours left until dark. Xinghua plans to save money by not staying at an inn and continuing on the mountain road to Changming Township. The weather is cold, and even the tigers and wolves on the mountain are starving to the point of going downhill. It's too dangerous to take the mountain road at this point if you don't make it home. The handlebar style is warm-hearted. Upon hearing Wei and Tu discussing visiting relatives and returning home, they immediately interjected and warned. In addition to the wild beasts on the mountain, there are also bandits on the mountain. If you go back alone as a man, there won't be much trouble. With an extra ant, those people won't show mercy. After parking at the inn, the handlebar style spat thick phlegm on the ground and added a warning to Wei and Tuesday. Listen to advice and have a full meal. Xinghua saw that there were many people staying at the inn by the roadside, not very wealthy in clothing, and no longer stubborn. She took out the silver money and rented a room. At night, the two of them fell asleep in unison. At around the fourth watch, due to the habit of raising horses, Wei Tu woke up midway. At this moment, he heard a faint and chaotic sound of horse hooves outside the house. Wei Tu walked to the window and pushed open a gap in the window sash. Soon, he was several hundred meters away, borrowing the bright moonlight, and saw the origin of the sound of horse hooves. That is a team of dozens of cavalry, wearing handrails and red leather armor. The leading cavalry is also holding a flag embroidered with the character Zheng. Zheng officials and soldiers. Wei Tu was surprised. Cavalry among the officers and soldiers has always been a rare species, and he has not seen them many times in Aoki County. There must be a reason he is not clear about appearing outside the inn this time. Just as Wei Tu was paying attention, the sound of fighting came from within these dozens of officers and soldiers. After waiting for half a quarter of an hour, the fighting gradually stopped. Shaoqing, the cavalry left one by one and disappeared on the official road. On the ground, there were more swordsmen holding Hengshan knives. Are the officers and soldiers suppressing bandits? Wei Tu guesses. Could it be that another famine has occurred somewhere? That's why bandits have emerged. There are two types of bandits. One is the born evil, the path-cutting bandit, and the other is the good people forced into bandits during the famine. The swordsmen of Qingfeng Prefecture were rampant, and they were at their peak during the Red Dragon Uprising in the 15th year of Qingyan. In some severely affected areas, 3 out of 10 households were swordsmen and bandits. I hope this matter will not affect the county town. When the disaster is severe, the chaotic people will become bandits, attacking cities and seizing strongholds. When the time comes, it will be the servants of us wealthy families who will serve as civil servants. Wei Tu's eyes show a worried expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Not entering the Ancestral Hall, for collection and follow-up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Not entering the Ancestral Hall, for collection and follow-up, the bandits killed by the officers and soldiers should have come from the neighboring Baiyang County. Baiyang County was hit by a disaster this year. The next day, after returning to his home in the countryside, during a conversation with Wei Bao, Wei Tu finally learned about the origins of those swordsmen. Last night, although he saw the officers and soldiers killing bandits, he dared not mention this matter more or ask others more, fearing to cause trouble. Only when I got home did I dare to speak up. 6 years ago, Wei Bao not only sold his eldest son but also a portion of his family's ancestral property in order to save the lives of his family. In recent years, in order to support my family, I have gone to the neighboring county with acquaintances from my hometown to become a wheat cutter. Baiyang County is located in the northwest direction of Qingmu County, mostly on dry slopes, and wheat ripens earlier than Qingmu County. Wei Leopard, this wheat customer, knows the news of the disaster in Baiyang County earlier than anyone in Qingshan County. However, this world. I guess it's also going to be chaotic. The grain in the charity warehouse of Baiyang County during this disaster relief was as much as 70% less than what was recorded in the account books. Wei Bao said. Listen to this. Wei Tu nodded. Although rural people lack culture, they are better able to understand the dramatic changes in society than wealthy families because they are at the bottom. It's like when it's cloudy and rainy, ants moving. After discussing yesterday's mutation, the father and son fell into silence, unsure of what topic to discuss. Wei Bao caught a glimpse of Wei Tu tying a dry tobacco pole around his waist, so he got up from his horse and walked to the windowsill to gather a small bag of dried tobacco leaves and handed it over. Try it, it's homemade, said Wei Bao. Less inclination. Father and son, one for you and one for me. The room quickly filled with layers of hazy mist, resembling a veil of moonlight. Dad, I'm sorry for you. These are some of the money I've saved over the years. You can take them with you, whether it's buying a house outside or redeeming a property deed, they can all have some effect. In the evening, Wei Tu was called out by Wei Bao. The widower didn't say much kind words. He stood under the shade of the eaves and took out a half-old and not new flower cloth bag from his chest, stuffing it into Wei Tuesday. After a moment of silence, Wei Tu took the flower cloth bag. Get started. He felt the heavy weight of the flower cloth bag. Even if it's just copper coins, there are at least 5 or 6 coins in this bag of copper coins. In addition to copper coins, Wei Tu also touched several hard bumps the size of soybeans. He knew in his heart that it was the broken silver that Wei Bao had accumulated over the years. However. Next, Wei Bao's indifferent words shattered the newly rising warmth in Wei Tu's heart. If you sell your body, unless you redeem your body deed, as a domestic slave, according to the rules, you cannot enter the ancestral temple to worship your ancestors. Including your wife. Wei Bao said word by word. Yes, rural people do not consider it a shame to sell oneself to a wealthy family. But they will not allow domestic slaves to worship their ancestors or enter ancestral halls. Because the clan chief takes this matter seriously. Being of the same lineage as a domestic slave will bring shame to the clan leader's lineage. I understand. Wei Tu felt a burning sensation on his face, grateful that he was hiding in a dimly lit countryside where no one could see the expression on his face clearly. He clenched his purse tightly, his throat twitched a few times, and said, I'll leave as soon as tomorrow, so that the villagers won't see me. Only then did he understand. For domestic slaves, returning home with their wives is not a matter of honor, but a shameful act that embarrasses the clan. Watch it and then open it. Being trampled on top of one's head always feels uncomfortable. Wei Bao gave him money not only out of inner debt, but also to prevent him from claiming to return to the village in the village. Leaving Weijia village early is better than being looked down upon and embarrassed. Okay. Wei Bao hesitated a few times on his lips, paused for a moment, and then said the word okay. In the morning. The mountain path was soaked in morning dew and a bit slippery. Wei Tu and Xinghua walked with small steps. Xinghua accidentally fell and leaned against the mountain wall, rubbing her ankle. "Brother Wei, have I been despised by your father?" I called him father, but he didn't say a word. Tears oozed from the corners of Apricot Blossom's eyes. Also, the ancestral hall. In her words, she was filled with resentment for not being able to enter the Wei family ancestral hall for worship. Wei Tu didn't answer. He touched Xinghua's head and held her in his arms, letting her tears wet his collar. "There will be that day." Wei Tu secretly swore. When he got married, he didn't have 3 betrotheds and 6 gifts for Apricot Blossom, so everything was simplified. But when he returned to his hometown to visit his relatives, he made Xinghua unable to even enter the ancestral hall, and the two of them left Weijia village in a disheveled state early on. He is concerned about this. It's impossible not to care. Return to Li's house. Wei Tu continued his peaceful life. The matter of renting land for farming was never mentioned by Li Tong again, as if he had forgotten about it. Wei Tu speculated that this was Li's plan to heir him and Apricot Blossoms, and the way to govern was to use both kindness and power. He continued to comfort Apricot Blossom to wait patiently. Half a year has passed. When it was time to start farming in spring, seeing that Li Tong had not yet mentioned this issue, Xinghua also gave up on letting Wei Tu become a tenant and save money this year. Turtle breathing and qi nourishing skill, 34 out of 100. Practice 9 times a day and complete within 5 years. It has been about a year since I obtained the turtle breathing and qi nourishing technique. On this day, Wei Tu was practicing his health preservation skills diligently. Just as he was practicing for the 13th time, he suddenly felt a gentle sound like a river tide crashing on the shore coming from his body, and the pile skills on his feet seemed to have an inexplicable unique charm during the transformation. After a few breaths, a stronger warm current gushed out of the body than before, penetrating all 4 limbs and bones, enhancing the body. Isn't it that you have achieved a small success in health preservation? Wei Tu glanced at the progress of the health preservation techniques engraved on his destiny. As far as he knows, martial arts can be divided into 4 basic stages. Beginners, achievers, and perfectionists. At this moment, his progress in health preservation has reached 1.3. Based on the changes in his body this time, according to inference, he should have reached the stage of small success in health preservation. Try a 200-pound stone lock. After the warm current in Wei Tu's body disappeared, after recuperating for a while, he looked at several stone locks in the corner of the yard. The cost of stone locks is not high. After deciding to practice martial arts, he spent a little money to buy this set of stone locks for practicing strength from nearby farmers. Walking to the stone lock, Wei Tu placed one hand on top of the 200-pound stone lock and lifted it forcefully. The stone lock was easily lifted to his chest by him until it was level with his shoulder. Success. Wei Tu's face showed a joyful expression. A stone lock weighing 200 pounds can be lifted by adults with some effort, but the difference between being able to lift it and lifting it with one arm is significant. He is qualified to take the martial arts exam with a stone lock that can lift 200 pounds with one arm. However, participating in the martial arts examination is not enough to obtain a martial arts title, as only the strength meets the standard. In addition to lifting stones, the martial arts examination also includes several exams such as wielding swords, drawing a hard bow, horseback archery, and military strategy. While practicing archery, accumulate money and find a way to get rid of slavery first. Slaves are not eligible to participate in the martial arts examination. Wei Tu put down the stone lock and pondered on his next life plan. At present, based on his own conditions, the quickest and best shortcut to cross social classes is to participate in the 3-year military examination conducted by the state of Zheng. Although the martial arts examination was not as prestigious as the literary examination, it was also a huge class leap for the common people in Pingtu. Thank you very much for the cancellation of the 2,000 renminbi reward for the funeral. Thank you very much for your monthly pass support, dear readers. If you have monthly tickets, please also vote for this book, Arigato. Thank you to all the readers. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Private Money, Seeking Collection and Pursuing Reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Private Money, Seeking Collection and Pursuing Reading. However, the prerequisite for participating in the martial arts examination was that he first got rid of his slave status in Aoki Prefecture. But getting rid of slavery is often not an easy task. One should have enough redemption silver in hand to redeem the body deed from the master. Both bring their master's letter and personal deed to the Yamen household to handle the procedures for leaving the country. The Yamen will not stop the good deeds of increasing tax revenue under governance, and the real difficulty lies in dealing with the master in charge of the personal contract. For so many years in Li's house, people have been eating horses and learning horse-raising skills. They want to redeem my deed of identity, which is at least 10 taels of silver or more in the market. Wei Tu's face turned a bit ugly when he thought of this. He worked hard from a tenant farmer to become a horse shepherd in the Li family, and his treatment in the Li family was greatly improved, with wages, meat, and a position in front of the main family. Even the host arranged his marriage for him if he doesn't redeem himself. All of this is good. But redemption, I have to spit out everything I ate and drank before. The identity of a horse shepherd can also elevate the value of one's personal contract. Besides that, technical workers are all gold lumps. The Yamen conscript civil servants, and he, as a horse shepherd, can also go on top of the job, exempting the master from a large amount of proxy silver. Under this premise, even if he had saved enough 10 taels of silver to redeem himself, Li Mansion would not easily let him go, let alone Mr. Li, who is still a sharp person. Be stingy and skinny. Command the servants to light only one stem, fearing that they will waste their own oil. When my dad sold me back then, he only got 5 coins of silver and 2 bushels of wheat. Wei Tu sighed to himself. In just 6 years, his value has increased 20 times, which is unimaginable. However, during the famine, his life was not valuable, and he was able to sell his life, which was considered a fortunate thing at that time. How much money is still on hand? In the evening, when Xinghua returned to her room, Wei Tu asked about Xinghua's private money. Although the two of them have already gotten married, according to customs, the private money saved by Xinghua before is his own dowry, and his husband cannot use a penny without Xinghua's consent. Why are you asking this? Xinghua's face showed a hint of vigilance. The private money saved by working in Li's house over the years is the foundation for her survival. Even if Wei Tu were her man, without a valid reason, she wouldn't have given a penny. I plan to leave and take the martial arts exam, but I have much less money in my hands. Wei Tu didn't hesitate and said his plan. Now he has married Xinghua and is the closest person, relying on each other. Using the apricot blossom dowry, although he felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart, the matter of leaving his family involved a future, and he thought it would be better as soon as possible. He won't act sentimental here. If you owe apricot blossoms today, you can repay them 100 or 1,000 times tomorrow. Husband and wife, it's about shouldering difficulties together and enjoying blessings together. Retirement. Wei Guer, what kind of stimulation have you received? Are you crazy? Upon hearing Wei Tu's words, Xinghua stood up with a frightened expression on her face. She lowered her voice and scolded, "Where else can you go to get such a good job after leaving Li's house? After this autumn, I will try to test Grandma's reputation again. Maybe she can rent a land this year. After renting the land, life will get better and we can also move out of this house." After Xinghua murmured a few words, tears welled up from the corners of her eyes and she gently wiped them with a handkerchief. She thought she had married a peaceful man and had a promising life, but now it seems that Wei Tu is inherently restless. Martial arts examination. Is the martial arts examination something that servants can take? Ordinary people who pass the martial arts examination must bow down and shout, "Master of Martial Arts Examination," when they see it. You see, Wei Tu didn't come forward to comfort him when he saw the appearance of Apricot Blossom. Instead, he walked out of the hall, picked up the 200-pound stone lock at the corner of the courtyard, and carried it back into the room. He played a trick in front of Apricot Blossom. Facts are the best evidence. He has the capital to take the martial arts examination. Isn't this fake? Xinghua wiped away her tears with a handkerchief and walked over to Wei Tu, trying to lift the stone lock. Soon, she showed an incredulous expression, her eyes even brighter and more sparkling than the oil lamps in the room. The weight of the 200-pound stone lock was so heavy that she couldn't even lift it, but her man had the ability to dance it. She is not a weak woman who cannot carry her shoulders or lift her hands. Apricot Blossom approached and touched Wei Tu's chest. Soon, through her summer clothes, she felt the bulging and firm chest muscles, as well as a pair of sturdy arms as thick as rafters. "Brother Wei, do you really have plans to take the martial arts examination?" Xinghua believed Wei Tu's words. At this moment, she is not only counting on the next generation to succeed in education, but also counting on her own men to stand out in this generation. As long as you practice archery well, it shouldn't be a big problem to get into the martial arts examination and become a martial arts scholar. Although Wei Tu may not believe it in his heart, he still made a promise to Xinghua. There is still more than a year left until the martial arts examination in Qingfeng Prefecture. During this time, his physique is definitely stronger than it is now. In addition, without slavery, he is also convenient to do things. Even if he can't make a lot of money with modern things in his mind, he is still more than enough to earn a few small sums of money. Nowadays, even with top-notch military force, one can protect their rightful property. Don't be afraid of being coveted by Xiao Xiao. My private money has 3 or 2 or 7 yuan, which is the wages for so many years, as well as the usual rewards in the house. Xinghua hesitated for a moment, took out her private money from the mahogany box in the corner, placed it on the bed, and counted it. She entered the Li residence 2 years earlier as a maid, and received many rewards on a daily basis. Not to mention becoming a cook in the Li residence later on, she was a bit greedy for ink, which was a good investment. Of course, she is timid and dare not be greedy. She only dares to be greedy for some bargaining money when buying vegetables and cutting meat. Servants are greedy for money, and most of these masters know that as long as they don't go too far, they won't ask too much. Otherwise, with Li Tong's shrewdness, Xinghua wouldn't have been a cook for so long. I only have a little over 1 or 2 in my hands, plus the money my dad gave me. When I calculate it, there is a little over 3 liang. The distance is 10 taels, and there is still a gap of $3 to $3. Wei Tu calculated the total sum of money for the two and said, 3. If we can persuade Grandma this year to rent 3 or 4 acres of land and remove the rent, we can earn 5 or 6 yuan. I will borrow some more from Chunlan and Saixia, and with our future wages, the gap between us should not be too large. It's really not possible. Apricot Blossom gritted her teeth and started planning to use her power to make a large sum of money. This doesn't work. Wei Tu saw Xinghua's plan and stopped him in time. Greedy bargaining for small money, this is within the limits of the rules, and when Li Tong finds out, he will also turn a blind eye. But if one has a crooked mind, pretending to be good and playing with the ghost scale, then Li Tong will not be so easy to talk about. Even if Xinghua is killed, the Yamen will not investigate too much and will fine a sum of silver to settle the matter. If you become a kiln girl, I can just be a kiln girl. Seeing the worried expression on Wei Tu's face, Xinghua was moved in her heart and swore this sentence. Pooh. I don't want to say that. What do you think of your man? Wei Tu frowned and reprimanded. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Forcing to the end, seeking collection and pursuing reading. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 9. Forcing to the end, seeking collection and pursuing reading, spring has passed and autumn has arrived. In the blink of an eye. Another year has passed. During the spring plowing period in the 23rd year of Qingyan, the Li Tong family finally loosened their grip and rented 3 acres of riverside land outside Qingshan County to the Wei Tu couple. However, in terms of renting, Li Tong did not slack off at all. Like other tenants, he had to hand over 60% of the grain produced from the land. Fortunately, the lease of the Li family includes the land tax collected by the government, unlike other property owners who require tenants to pay the land tax. In other words, Wei Tu planted 3 acres of land, except for 60% of the leased land, the remaining 40% is his own. In addition, while planting wheat, you can also plant some soybeans between the wheat seedlings. This is also another income increase. In the first half of the month when the wheat was ripe, the old master Li Yaozu led the servant Wei Tu into the city and paid the maintenance fee for his eldest son Li Xingye at the Fuxue Academy. The imperial edict from the Imperial Academy is really not a good thing. Even though it takes about 10 days for the wheat to ripen, I insist on completing the training at this point. It's obvious that I want to search for more money. On the way, Li Yaozu rode on a horse, led by Wei Tu towards the capital city. As he walked, he turned back to look at the mule cart behind him carrying grain, and complained that this year's bundle repair was delivered too early, causing him to lose his silver money in vain. Wei Tu remained silent, quietly listening to Li Yaozu's long sighs and muttering to himself. Every year. Before harvest. After harvest. The price of grain is 2 prices. It seems that they have paid the same amount of maintenance, but due to the varying prices of grain at the time, the Fuxue Academy can resell it at this time and earn a lot of money. Wei Tu had heard about the filth of the Fuxue from Li Yaozu not 10 times, but 8 times, and was already familiar with it. In half a month, after the grain is harvested, enough money will be saved up for the shortage. All that's left is to persuade Li Yaozu and Li Tong to redeem their deeds. Wei Tu pondered to himself. Similar to what was planned, after more than a year of frugality, the money in his hands was not much less than 10 taels of ransom silver. Now, all that is needed is to persuade Li Yaozu and Li Tong to agree to his redemption, return the body deed to him, and be willing to write a letter to prove it. However, just as Wei Tu was pondering how to say to redeem his body deed, he complained about the old master Li Yaozu, who had finished teaching from the government, but suddenly spoke to him. Wei Tu, you have a burly physique and great strength. Why don't you stay at Xingye and become a servant? Protect him. As a dad, I can feel a little more at ease now. Li Yaozu tightened the reins, causing the guard in front of the horse to stop. Then, he looked down at the guard and touched the goatee under his jaw, his eyes shining brightly, and said, "The young master is being attended to by someone around him, and I went to grab a seat. If it disrupts the young master's reading mood, it will not be good." Wei Tu hesitated for a moment, found a suitable reason, and evaded. In half a year, it will be the county's children's test. Wei Tu added another sentence. The time difference between the county civil and military examinations is about half a month, with the civil examination being the first and the military examination being the second, so he knows the time of the child examination very well. However, Li Yaozu did not mention it again. But Wei Tu kept this matter in mind. Li Yaozu, taking advantage of the busy autumn season, wanted to support me. What was his idea? On the way to Li's house in Qingshan County after completing the bundle repair, Wei Tu has been pondering the reason for this matter. Master Li Yaozu is a difficult person to get along with, which is a consensus among the servants of Li Zhai. And this also indirectly demonstrates Li Yaozu's shrewdness, which is not easy to deceive. He could have thought that changing his followers would affect the education of young Master Li Xingye. Could Li Yaozu not have thought of this? This is impossible. Return to Li's house. Wei Tu searched for Caixia, who was a maid, and shared her confusion with Caixia before asking for her opinion. Caixia and he are the same group of servants who entered the Li residence, and their relationship has always been good. The news of his marriage to Xinghua being widely accepted by the Li Tong family was also revealed by Caixia through the mouth of Chunlan. From my perspective, it's possible that the master had an idea for Sister Xinghua. Caixia pulled Wei Tu to the corner of the corridor, found a direction that no one saw, and whispered her judgment. Grandma hasn't been very happy lately. A few nights ago, I heard the master and grandma arguing, saying that the master has an affair with the tenant's aunts. The master supports you. The land you rented is not taken care of by anyone, so Sister Xinghua will let him control it. Caixia said word by word. What a cunning mind. After listening to Caixia's words, Wei Tu's face immediately turned black, wishing to dismember Li Yaozu in 5 horses and cut him into countless pieces in front of him. Previously, he has heard that some tenants, in order to rent good land from their landlords, would offer their mother-in-law an aunt to sleep with. But unexpectedly, this seemingly friendly Li mansion was also full of these calculations. Letting him become the follower of the young master may not be the true intention of Li Yaozu. Using this to force him to submit and offer apricot blossoms is his true purpose. Not conforming. The grain grown after a year of hard work is wasted in the field. Not conforming. It's impossible to rent such a good field next year. As for why Li Yaozu did not directly force Xinghua, who had not been married before, to comply, he could also guess the approximate reason. One reason is that Li Tong's family is strict and somewhat jealous, and he does not allow Li Yaozu to take concubines and take action against the maids around him. Even Caixia, the big maid, has been a housemaid for so long, and now she is still innocent. Both are also due to family traditions, and rumors of Li Yaozu, a master who likes to play with maids, cannot be spread inside the Li mansion, which is a disgrace to his reputation. Li Yaozu himself did not want such a thing to happen. The 3. Playing with maids. Whether to give or not a place is a difficult task. And forcing tenant aunts to comply would have no worries. The lowly people in the countryside do not have the feudal etiquette of small death, big misconduct. As long as this matter is not known, it can be easily exposed. I know about this. Thank you, Caixia. After a moment, Wei Tu slowly released his clenched fist and bowed to Caixia to express his gratitude, saying, "It's not a big deal," Caixia smiled. "When I was punished by my grandmother before, Sister Xinghua secretly brought me food. I've been thinking about this kindness." Return to the main hall. After feeding half of the dark horse, Wei Tu practiced several health exercises and warmed up his body. With my current military strength, achieving martial arts achievements is not far from guaranteed, even if not guaranteed. Directly speaking to Li Tong to redeem herself, with her intelligence, she shouldn't stop me. Wei Tu pondered. Shallow water cannot breed true dragons. He believed that Li Tong should understand that leaving a martial artist with a rebellious heart at home would lead to some potential consequences. If it doesn't work out, Li Tong is not wise. Wei Tu's eyes showed a hint of cruelty. With a sharp blade in mind, the killing heart arises. With his current strength, slaughtering the entire Li family is not difficult. Of course, he was concerned about the kindness of the Li family to his life and would not do so, but he would still escape from the Li family, become a bandit, and become a swordsman. He has had enough of being submissive. 2 roads. Either redeem oneself and participate in the martial arts examination, or become a bandit and become a swordsman. P.S. Everyone, leave more messages and comments. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Raise your head, seeking collection and following reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Raise your head, seeking collection and following reading. After discussing the matter of redemption with Li Tong, Wei Tu carefully decided not to delay for too long. He is worried that delay will lead to change. According to Caixia, the old master Li Yaozu wanted to use the autumn harvest from the tenant fields to threaten his couple and force him and Xinhua to comply. The wheat harvest in Qingshan County has been here for about 10 days. Over time, if one encounters Li Yaozu's coercion, then there will be no more loyalty between the master and servant. If he were to propose redemption at that time, Li Yaozu would definitely try his best to stop him, even at the cost of framing, to eliminate the calamity of his Li residence. And redeem oneself in advance. Although I still have some money left on me. But now that the masters and servants have not yet torn apart their faces, Li Yaozu, seeing him as strong, will also have a sense of fear, and there is a high probability that he will cancel the original plan and not form an enemy with him. At night, Wei Tu explained his plan to Xinhua and sought her opinion. "You're my man, I'll listen to you," Xinhua replied. Xinhua knows that her eyelids are thin, so she never argues with Wei Tu in the general direction. "That's enough with your words," Wei Tu nodded and instructed Xinhua to return to Li's house later when she went to the county town to buy groceries tomorrow. "If there is any change, you should leave the county town as soon as possible and hide outside the city," he cautioned. "Brother Wei, are you going to?" Upon hearing this, Xinghua's heart trembled and she instantly thought of something bad. But as soon as she spoke out of her throat, she stopped again, let out a gentle moan, pulled her legs out of the quilt, and began to tidy up the delicate home in the darkness. "Don't pull me down when you leave." After the lights went out, the couple hugged each other and slept. In the middle of the night, Xinhua opened Wei Tu's eyes and whispered this sentence. Wei Tu's sleeping spirit, after being awakened, became confused for a while. In a daze, he heard Xinghua's words clearly, but didn't know how to answer her. At that time, in the midst of panic, he couldn't guarantee whether he would still carry a burden and cause himself death. "I still want you to cook for me. I'm used to your food, but eating someone else's food doesn't make me feel good." Wei Tu thought for a long time and said something that wasn't very ironclad. However, the words fell. Apricot Blossom fell asleep, exhaling a rapid and slightly hot breath. The next day, in the morning, Wei Tu got up early as usual, taking care of his work, mixing materials for horses, and chopping up the hay he had accumulated a few days ago one by one. He even filled the bucket with clean water without leaving any gaps. After finishing the work, Wei Tu watched as the apricot flower basket walked out of the front door of Li's house. Then he sat on the stone pillar and waited for a while until the sun burned his back unbearably. He then stood up and walked towards the inner house. Outer men are not allowed to enter the inner house without the instructions of their master. Wei Tu remembered his duty and stood at the entrance of the inner house, inviting maids to enter and report to the Li Tong family. Soon, the maid led the guard into the living room with Li Tong's command. "Brother Wei, what's the urgent matter you're looking for me for? But what's missing from our family? Or are you at odds with Xinhua?" Li Tong frowned and glanced at Wei Tu standing in the center of the hall. Li Tong's voice was calm, without any hint of superiority, but those familiar with Li Tong knew that it was deliberately suppressing their anger and dissatisfaction. When a male servant enters the inner house, if there is something to do outside the house, he can speak directly and communicate it through the maid. There is no need to enter the inner house to discuss. Wei Tu entered the inner house today. In the eyes of Li Tong, it was not proper. No rules, no square. As the main mother, Li Tong was determined to suppress any signs that could cause unrest in the Li family and trample them to death. Li Tong sipped her tea, and the scorching heat of the tea made her lips and tongue ache. However, she still maintained her mother-in-law demeanor, coldly looking at Wei Tu, waiting for his answer. However, Wei Tu's opening caught Li Tong off guard. Wei Tu bowed and said, "Grandma, I came to the inner house this time to redeem my deed. I plan to take the martial arts examination next year." As the words fell, the whole room fell silent, and the atmosphere froze to freezing point, with needles falling to be heard. Li Tong was stunned. Including the servant girls standing behind Li Tong, they were also shocked one by one. In a mansion, it should be said that in a wealthy family, the last thing that servants cannot mention is the deed of identity. This is a taboo. No one mentioned the act of selling oneself, so the servants of the outer and inner houses could each fulfill their duties, as if it were innate, rather than imposed by fate. Wei Guer, you have been with the Li family for some years, and the Li family should treat you well. Li Tong's expression remained unchanged, but the finger hidden in his sleeve tightened the corner of his sleeve. Servants redeem themselves, often appearing in wealthy households with restless homes. She has been in charge of the internal affairs of Li's house for so many years and does not want a stain for other women in the county to criticize. Li Zhai owes me a living grace. Wei Tu nodded and answered. The hall faces north and south, and under the shadow of sunlight, Li Tong's face slightly softened. But isn't the salary enough? She spoke in a gentle tone. At this moment, Li Tong remembered that Wei Tu's wages had not increased for a long time. It was probably due to the issue of wages that Wei Tu reminded her of his redemption. No, Granny. Wei Tu shook his head firmly. Granny, I just said that I plan to redeem myself and take the martial arts examination next year. Wei Tu was puzzled as he spoke clearly earlier, but why didn't Li Tong hear the latter half of his sentence? The martial arts examination. These 4 words appeared again in Li Tong's mind, and after this time, Li Tong finally understood the meaning represented by these 4 words. Li Tong raised her eyes and carefully examined the young man with slightly dark skin in front of her. After about half a look, she said, "You look up." From the moment she entered the living room, she saw Wei Tu's head kept low and never lifted. Or rather, since Li bought Wei Tu as a servant, she hasn't seen Wei Tu lift his head. She has always been satisfied with Wei Tu's adherence to rules, but today, she feels like she has miscalculated. The person who has always been the most regular, turns out to be the most restless in his bones. He actually wants to redeem himself, take the martial arts exam, and leave the Li family. Yes, Granny. Wei Tu lifted his head and looked straight at the mother of the Li family in front of him, as instructed. Why do you want to take the martial arts exam? It's not easy to take the exam. After seeing Wei Tu's appearance, Li Tong's heart temporarily calmed down and asked in a warm voice. Wei Tu's face is not the peculiar appearance she saw in the book, resembling that of a dragon. On the contrary, Wei Tu's appearance is somewhat unremarkable and indistinguishable from rural farmers. Grandmother didn't know that Wei Tu had already obtained a health preservation book from my second aunt 2 years ago. After practicing for these 2 years, his strength has increased significantly and he has met the requirements for taking the martial arts examination. After pondering for a moment, Wei Tu recounted his practice of health preservation techniques in detail, while also mentioning his second aunt Wei Hong. Thank you very much for the 100 starting coins that Washalilai gave as a reward. End of this chapter.